Humza Yousaf, why should you be the leader of the SNP and First Minister?
Well, thanks for having me on. The reason why I want to be the party's next leader and Scotland's next First Minister is because I believe I have the experience. Going for the top job, succeeding in the top job, you've got to have that experience. And I've had over a decade in government and pretty difficult jobs, transport, justice, and now arguably the most difficult job is Health Secretary, recovering the NHS from a global pandemic. I also believe I've got the necessary skills to bring people together. You've been reporting just last week that NHS trade unions in Scotland are not going on strike. When they're going on strike elsewhere in the UK, that's because I've built that relationship, compromise where necessary, engaged where necessary. And again, these are good skills to have, I think, for the top job of First Minister. And the very last point is that I believe in independence with every fibre of my being. I think at a time when people are really suffering due to a Tory cost of living crisis, we've got to get back on talking about the policies, not the process, and make sure that independence becomes a settled will of the Scottish people.
You spoke about Nicola Sturgeon being exceptional, and Nicola Sturgeon couldn't deliver independence. How are you going to?
Well, because independence and delivering independence is not about one person. I think that's probably been the danger of the debate about independence in recent years, that people have focused on one person. But actually, in the SNP and I suspect the broader Yes movement, we've got this wide array of talent. I want to harness that talent from our MPs, our MSPs, our
Nicola
councillors.
Sturgeon is very much the forefront of that, very much.
Absolutely.
The figurehead.
And precisely one of the reasons why she resigned, and she made this point in her resignation speech, was that one figure can then become a polarising figure. How do they take that debate forward? Now, Nicola Sturgeon still is exceptionally popular, but it isn't about one person. It's about, as I say, harnessing that talent. I mean,
so why hasn't that happened before then? Why isn't that talent?
Every time I look at PMQs, for example, and I look at Stephen Flynn, I go, people see how impressive we are down in Westminster. They see how impressive we are up here.
But why hasn't that talent been harnessed before?
Well, look, again, it's the talent that we have at the moment, and because there has been a focus, I think, on one personality, one individual, although I would like to be leader of the party and the next First Minister, I would like it to be about the government, the wider team, the MPs team, the councillors that we have.
So it's been too much about one person up until now. Nicola Sturgeon's been too much.
Look, she has been the focus because she is exceptional, and she is, the independence movement now has ascended to dizzying heights. But I think it's not just about the leaders, not just about the one individual. Whoever leads absolutely has to be at the forefront. And I would like to be that person. But it's also about the people behind them and letting them come to the fore. And again, the First Minister said that. She said there is an array of talent in the Parliament, in the party, I should say, and she would like that talent to now be given a lease of life.
You've spoken that it should be about policy rather than process, securing a second independence referendum and going to the grassroots. And is that going back to basics? Is that saying, scrub what's gone before, we need to go back and talk to our members, find out what they want and take it on? So back to the basics, and it's going to take a lot longer now to deliver an independence referendum if you're going through that process.
Well, look, when I first joined the party well over 15 years ago, support for independence was at 27%, 25%. Polls now will put us in the majority. Some polls will put us just under that majority. So you could say it's around about 50%. What I want to do is make sure that we have the sustained, settled will is for independence. And we don't have that at the moment because we are stuck in this quagmire talking about process and more process, and that's where our opponents want us. But
so
at a time,
who took us to that quagmire?
Our opponents want, because they refused, of course, what they should have done is devolve the powers for the Scottish referendum.
So how's it going to be any different for you?
Well, I think that's going to be different because what I'm saying is, yep, we'll need to engage in the process, but let's get back to the basics. Let's knock every door. Let's ring every person on their phone. Let's speak to people face to face. Let's tell them in a cost of living crisis that it doesn't have to be this way. We can unleash the potential of the country with independence.
Would you use the next general election as a de facto referendum?
So I've already said today that I'm certainly not wedded to that approach. I think there's disadvantages of doing that. There's some advantages too. But again, I go back to what the First Minister said in her resignation statement. I think it's important that now she has done that the party has a proper discussion, an honest discussion. Let's be really honest about it. Let's not cook up some fantasy schemes that are not going to fly, that aren't based in any reality.
Is that what these things were? Is that what the general election election de facto
No,
referendum?
because I think we should keep some of these options absolutely on the table. What I'm talking about, for example, are some people suggesting that if you get 50% plus one of the vote, then that will then instruct and demand the UK government to come up to Edinburgh and negotiate independence. That ain't going to happen. So let's have an honest debate about what the routes could be, but don't let that distract us from the policy, and get out there, roll up your sleeves, quite literally. Let's all of us, with whoever's the party leader next, at the forefront, and let's talk about why this country needs independence.
You've spoken about your experience in government. What Kate Forbes has is experience in finance, and during a cost of living crisis, that could be crucial, and you don't have that.
Well, look, by the way, Kate's exceptionally talented, and anybody would want her to be in their government. So, I totally respect what you're saying about Kate's experience in finance. What I'm saying about my experience is I've been in government for over a decade, done some of the most difficult jobs, and if you're going to be First Minister, you have to have experience of the top jobs.
You've been successful in all these jobs.
Yeah, you'll have success in some elements, you'll have other elements where you'll put your hand up and say, actually, we could have done things better. And I think you've got to be upfront and you've got to be honest on that. But I'm happy to stand on the record that I've got. But what I would say is this, John, it's about having that grit, that resilience, that experience when you've got the top job. I'm the only candidate now that's in the race that has this level of experience.
If you can give me one sentence answers for these basic questions that are coming out now. Will you maintain the deal with the Greens?
Absolutely.
And
that was a one-word answer.
It was. I know. If you can do that with the next one, that would be good as well. Will the deposit return scheme start in August?
Yes, but I think there is an opportunity to look at small retailers and whether or not we can perhaps go further, and can we even exclude small retailers or phase them in later, because that's where we're certainly hearing the most concern. So I'd be open to that discussion.
Kate Forbes today was asked about taking the UK government to court for blocking the gender recognition reform bill, and this is what she had to say about that.
Well, I don't think that we should challenge the Section 35 in court, because I think the public want us to focus on things like the NHS, on making the case for independence, on the cost of living crisis, not on another court challenge. But I would engage with the UK government to look at how we amend the bill further.
That's Kate Forbes' view. What's your view? What would you do?
My view is we cannot cave in to the UK government vetoing legislation passed by the Scottish Parliament, passed by majority, with support from members of every political party. If we do that, if we cave in, we set the most dangerous precedent in the history of devolution, which is that we will lay down and allow the UK government at a whim to strike a red pen through any legislation they disagree with.
Which they've never done before.
Which they have never done
which suggests
before.
Something with this legislation is maybe legitimate.
We have engaged with them to say, well, OK, you've got a disagreement, bring forward an amendment. Tell us an amendment that would help to satisfy the concerns you have. They have not done it. This is part of a culture war, John. Let's just call it what it is. And they will then.
But it's a culture war that split your party as well. How do you bring healing in your party over this?
I think it's a very fair question. It's a very fair question. And there are divisions in our party over this. So I think the approach that we take is to say, you can have that disagreement. It doesn't mean that we have to cast people out. Now, if you stand in a manifesto, though, I think it's really important that if you stand in that manifesto, you get elected in that manifesto, then you follow through with the policies of that manifesto. But there's got to be a space to allow disagreement, and that's the kind of leadership I want to bring.
Much has been made of Kate Forbes' faith and how it influences her choices. You're also a practising Muslim. How does that influence your choices?
Again, I think it's a really good question. So I'm going to be fasting during this campaign, rather inconvenient timing of the campaign. So you're right, my faith is very important to me. The difference is that I can disassociate my faith from the basis of legislation. It is not the basis by which I legislate or make policy. But also what I would say to people is, look, when you're a representative, you represent people of all faiths, of no faith, you represent the LGBT community and everybody else in between. It's really important that you take a view of what is best for the country as opposed to any personal belief.
But is there not an inconsistency in that? People say you're not being honest.
No, there's not inconsistency in that. I'm being very consistent. I'm saying to you that I don't use my faith as a basis to legislate. Kate, in fairness, sounds like she's saying the opposite. That's fine, because that's her view. I'm saying I have a different view. Now, and I would say, have a track record. You can look at my record in terms of equality and what I've supported over the past, and I stand very firm on that.
You describe yourself today as Humza the father. You've got a young family. How are you going to balance that with this very demanding role?
You've got to make sure you put in boundaries. I do that as the Health Secretary. Health Secretary is an intensely busy job. It's why I have bags under my bags under my bags in my house, despite the best efforts of your makeup artist. But you have to make boundaries. So, I tell my private office on a Monday if they can avoid putting in meetings between 7:30 and 8:30 because I want to give my 3-year-old a bath and put her to bed. They do their best to do that. It doesn't work out every week. My wife would be the first to tell you that. But I make sure I set some real boundaries. And I think if you're going
as a First Minister?
It has to work. Otherwise, we're going to have people who have children, who have kids, and we're going to say to them, look, every job is available to you except the top job in the country. So you have to. It's going to be demanding. It's going to be tough. And it's one of the reasons that I had to take a bit of time. We didn't have all that much time, but I had to take a bit of time talking to my wife and my children and my family about whether to run or not. You
were one of the few people that knew in advance that Nicola Sturgeon was going to resign. Are you the favoured successor? She said she's not going to support anybody publicly, but does that suggest that you're the favoured successor that you knew?
Nicola phoned me because we've been friends for well over 15 years and we've had great times together, we've laughed together, we've cried together, and she did the courtesy of telling not just me, there's a number of colleagues that she told
but not other potential leadership rivals.
Look, as I say, Nicola has made her position very, very clear and I respect it. I think it's the right thing for her to do, not to endorse any candidate.
OK. Many in the SNP are calling for Peter Murrell, the Chief Executive and the husband of Nicola Sturgeon, to stand aside because of all the investigations that have been going on into party finances. Do you support them?
No. Peter Murrell's a proven winner. Peter Murrell's won election after election after election for the SNP and helped to win election after election. He's a proven winner. What Peter Murrell chooses to do, of course, is a matter entirely for him, and I would respect that if I was party leader, but certainly there'd be no pressure.
You want him to stay on?
I want him to, it's his choice in terms of what he does, but anybody that doesn't want a proven winner on their side, particularly when you're in politics, I think that would be a little bit daft.
Humza Yousaf, thanks for joining us on Scotland Tonight.
Thanks, John.